Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brigitte, and if you didn't know, we started a podcast. Our second episode ever is over on our podcast YouTube channel, which I'm gonna link down below. But we sat down with our personal chiropractor, Dr. Shtulman, and we had a whole conversation. It was like an hour and a half conversation. It was long, but it was so good. And we talked about tons of different medical things that I think you'll be interested in. But we wanted to give you a little taste of it. So here are some clips of some of my favorite parts of the conversation.
I fell in love with pregnancy very early on. I have a copy of Life magazine from 1965. It's the first color photos ever taken inside of a womb. And it shows a developing baby. And there's one photo or one page where there's a photo of sperm that are all swimming in the same direction. And there's another photo where they're swimming in all sorts of different directions. And the only difference between those two photos is the presence of an egg available to be fertilized.
Oh, that's interesting.
That these little half cells of genetic potential have the intelligence, right, to know where to go, how to get there, what to do when they do get there, and when to even try, right? And that half cell joins up with the egg, another half cell, to create one single human cell. And that cell divides and divides and differentiates, forming the heart, the lungs, the immune system, and the nervous system to facilitate all of it. And this idea that all of that happens inside of a body without you even having to think about it, right? That you were able to bring that life into this world, nourish that life through your own body, be able to do all this without even having to go to school or understand the process. Like that's the embodiment of the innate intelligence that I was talking about, right? Yeah. And so pregnancy and birth became the best example of this innate intelligence that I just fell in love with, that I said, oh my gosh. And then when I learned that chiropractic can improve the quality of life in pregnancy, that can improve the physical comfort, like you mentioned, but it can also help get baby in a better position. That can help relax the uterine and pelvic floor muscles. That can create a better internal environment for baby as they develop. That facilitates an easier birth process, a faster recovery postpartum, that helps baby breastfeed and helps baby go to the bathroom and be more comfortable. I mean, these are the building blocks of family union. And the idea that chiropractic has some influence on that, I just became enamored with it. And I said, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
So how does chiropractic have an influence? You know, we're talking about a pregnant woman, and you mentioned specifically a woman in labor, I think, right? So how does that, because I think I'm like, okay, I'm tracking with you. You're talking about alignment of the spine. You're talking about proper function of the nerves, and this is affecting contractions and letting down and all this. Is that, am I following you right there?
So there's a couple components, because we can talk about the structural component of it. If the pelvis is not moving properly, it makes it harder for baby, because babies don't just drop through the pelvis.
Right, that thing's trying to separate.
Well, and baby's corkscrewing through. The shoulders are wider this way, the head is wider this way. And so what happens is baby drops down, the head drops down, and then they rotate 90 degrees and the shoulders drop into the pelvis. Then they rotate 90 degrees and the head comes out. Then they rotate 90 degrees and the shoulders come out. There's a rotational corkscrew component to it.
I remember, I'm thinking about watching her give it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Well, if you
I never
notice,
saw that.
I'm thinking watching the hands go like this. Yeah.
Well, here's what happens is if you ever look at a natural birth, the head comes out and then there's a pause.
Yes.
And they're waiting for the shoulders to rotate. Now, the shoulders do that on their own. You don't really need a provider there manipulating baby's neck.
But I do see them doing that.
They do, and that's actually the cause of some of the first trauma that babies experience in life.
Interesting.
Because here's this baby, right? Explain to me how, for the most part, people are able to get pregnant on their own. They're able to grow this
figured out how to do that.
Yeah, good. You know, the body's able to create this life. Your body knows when to go into labor. But then suddenly the head comes out and you need somebody to put their hands on it and start twisting in order to help baby get out. Like, the idea is just absurd, that the body is so smart to create this life and bring this life into our arms.
But it can't get it
but
out
it can't
on
get
its
it
own.
out, right?
Yeah,
Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, there are times...
But doesn't it make them able to meet their tea time better?
You know, I
that's
think,
a C-section.
I think
yeah,
well, you know, augmented labor is, I mean, you're talking about like 85% of labors are augmented with some sort of medication.
Well, my first.
Yeah, and the problem is that there are times when it works out well.
Sure.
But there are also times when it could be a big problem.
Are you, quick question, are you talking of, is this a blanket statement referring to things like Pitocin to induce, but also to epidurals and things like that, or?
There are no blanket statements.
Okay.
There are times when those medications are invaluable.
Okay.
There are times when they save lives. Yeah. There are times when it's incredibly beneficial. But they are used way too often.
But when you say augmented labor, you mean anything that would alter the natural course of delivery?
An induction. Okay. I mean, you can even talk about IV fluids are a form of augmented labor. Okay. External monitoring or internal monitoring where they screw the probe into baby's skull. These are things.
Sorry.
These are things that, for the most part, are way overused. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not a time and place for them. The problem is that we have this idea, again, that pregnancy and birth is a condition that needs to be managed or treated.
As opposed to
like you're sick when you're in the hospital and you're going to give birth. That's how it's...
Absolutely.
So
you know.
And here's the thing, is you're talking about the most natural, most beautiful experience that, the basis for humanity, for life. And what we have is a system that views all of that as risk. Yeah. And when you're operating from a place of risk, you're taking away that inherent trust in the body's ability to do things. Now, there are times when absolutely those things are invaluable, but for the most part, we use them way too often and we use them inappropriately, which actually creates more problems that then have to be managed or fixed. There was an article from the Wall Street Journal a few years ago that talked about hospitals make more money correcting their mistakes than they do from the primary treatment. And when we talk about birth, there's something called the cascade of intervention, where intervening leads to more intervention, which leads to more intervention. And I think too often people look back at their birth experiences and they might experience a level of trauma. Nobody should experience that, right? Everybody, regardless of how you birth or how you choose to birth, everybody deserves to be respected and feel empowered and feel confident and proud of their experience.
And look at it as a beautiful, wonderful thing.
Absolutely. Whether baby comes out through the birth canal or when baby comes out through the abdomen, I don't care as long as that person feels empowered and respected in the process. Too often, we use medicine as a means of disempowering women, of taking away their rights, taking away their autonomy, taking away their choices. And I see people who are in labor who a doctor will come in and without even introducing themselves, stick their hand in their...
Guys, the rest of the conversation is so good, so I don't want you to miss it. So down below in the description box, I'm going to link our podcast YouTube channel if you want to watch it. But if you just want to listen to it while you're doing whatever else you're doing, driving, cleaning the house, then down below is also a link where you can pick whatever app you use to listen to podcasts and then listen to it there. Until we meet again, don't forget, life is better together.